What's interesting about the CX-70 isn't the fact that it's Mazda's newest two-row sporty SUV. And it also isn't the fact that Mazda gave the new CX-70 a double wishbone suspension up front, like a Porsche Cayenne. And it isn't the fact that Mazda gave this an inline-six engine like a Range Rover. Now it's the fact that the CX-70 has an inline-six turbo and a hybrid powertrain like a BMW X5, but for a lot less money. I call it ballin' on a budget. This is probably the most upscale vehicle that Mazda has made, and they are trying to stand out in a very crowded marketplace of mid-size two-row SUVs. And let's just get right to the point. This is essentially a two-row version of the Mazda CX-90. So Mazda has aimed this at people who aspire to a more sporty lifestyle, people that like to go kayaking, wakeboarding, and they need a little bit more space. So the focus here is on practicality because there's a lot more cargo space in the back. Also, the back seat is a lot bigger too. Quick refresher on the powertrains from the CX-90 because this gets the same powertrains. We've got a 3.3 liter turbo inline-six engine. Starting, it makes about 280 horsepower, 332 pound-feet of torque. It has made it to a small electric motor that is sandwiched in between the engine and the transmission, and it's got a small battery pack of about 0.68, 0.69 kilowatt hours. Then moving up, you've got, that's called the turbo, by the way, hello Porsche. Then in the Turbo S, hello Porsche again, we have the same motor and the same electric motor combination and the same battery, but it makes a little bit more horsepower. Moving up, you got 340 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. Then you've got a different motor, which is a 2.5 liter PHEV. This is a plug-in hybrid. It'll do about 26 miles on a charge. And you've got a larger electric motor and a larger battery pack. Every CX-90 is full-time all-wheel drive. It has made it to a conventional 8-speed automatic transmission. It's actually an in-house unit from Mazda. And you've got a center differential, which applies torque front and back as needed. The inline-six is considered a mild hybrid system. This is designed for a little bit of torque fill when you're driving around the city and down low, and it does improve MPG just a little bit. And this is a lot more upscale than the Asian competitors like the RAV4 and the Kia Sorento. And we're not just talking about the interior, we're also talking about the ride quality and just overall level of refinement. In this video, we're going to check out the interior, we're going to do some driving impressions for both powertrains, and we're going to get into some technical details on the power and towing, so let's get into it. So you've got a total of 7 different trim levels. You're starting with Preferred, Premium, and Premium Plus. Premium Plus is the nicest, and that's what I'm sitting in right now. And this has got Napa leather and real suede on the dash, real suede on the doors. It is a very nice place, actually. I really like it. You've got some fake wood here. You've got very nice wood trim down on the console. You got physical HVAC controls, and you've got a 12.3-inch display over here with your infotainment, wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto. And then you've got a very nice 12.3-inch display in front of the driver with really clear, good instrumentation. It's very easy to use. These seats in the Premium Plus are heated and cooled in the front. In the back, you get heated. The material selection in here is really, really nice. I'll talk about the back seat in a second, but there is a significant downside to this interior. So in the back, you've got plenty of leg room because this is a two-row SUV. I'm 5'9", I'm sitting behind myself, no issue at all. In terms of headroom, there's a ton of headroom over here too, and all of these vehicles come standard with a sunroof. It's pretty big. You also get sunshades, I think standard across all of these too. So there's a lot of nice pieces in here. You've got a Bose stereo system, which is actually not bad. It's, I think, 12 speaker, and you've got your own. In the back, you've got heating and ventilation controls here too. But also in the back, you've got standard power seats, which is very nice. Love that. So you can see you've got a massive amount of cargo space back here because, again, it's a two-row. In the back, you've got some extra spaces here. They call this a sub-trunk. And if I can flip this up, you can see you've got a massive storage space here where you can put whatever you want. It actually, that comes with some optional little containers, cargo containers. And there's another one. And there's another spot here as well. So 2 sub-trunks. And this is where the third row would be in the CX-90. One of the downsides is that you're a little bit nerfed in terms of spaces for, all right. I'm here. I think it's time to leave because I'm hearing shooting. Apparently I've just wandered onto the set of Mad Max, so someone was shooting something back there. I thought it was time to move, but as I was saying, your space is a little bit nerfed here because a lot of the competing SUVs have a big cargo space underneath here. The center console in this, not very big. It's pretty flat. It's about 2 inches deep. In the doors, you've got maybe room for 2 bottles of water. Same thing in the back. 3 in the back. A little bit of space over here, but overall, if you're carrying a lot of stuff, I would like to see a vehicle that just has a little bit more practicality, a little bit more space. The interior is absolutely gorgeous, I think, but it is at the expense of just losing a little bit of practicality and a little bit of cargo space. But with that, let's take it for a drive and let's talk about how these behave on the road. 3.3-liter inline 6 mild hybrid. It does have a little bit of augmented sound. I don't really mind it too much. It's made it to the 8-speed automatic transmission, which is an in-house unit. And I think what we're dealing with here is probably one of the main reasons why you would get this vehicle over something else. The inline 6 has a decent amount of power, 340 horsepower. The torque is pretty nice too at 369. You do have a little bit of torque fill from the electric motor, but honestly in day-to-day driving you can't really feel it. The 8-speed transmission seems for the most part like pretty responsive. It can be a little reluctant to kick down sometimes, but overall it seems to be pretty well mated to the inline 6 engine. It's not perfect, but it's very, very good. I think the tuning is very, very good. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is the dynamics of this car. And I think really the reason why you might get this vehicle, why you might consider it, is because you're thinking to yourself, okay, Miata. They've been making the Miata since the Neolithic ages. It is a car that has been on the road for so long, and it is really just excellent dynamically, that car. It's sort of everything you want in a lightweight sports car. And so they've taken some of that DNA. Why is this guy going 30 miles an hour here on this mountain road? You've taken some of that DNA from the Miata and you've transferred it over to this big, heavy SUV. And so by no means is this any kind of sports car or a light sports coupe, but you do have some of that DNA that moves over, and dynamically, this is a really nice drive. You've got the double wishbone suspension up front, and that gives you a nice turn in, and it really feels like there's a nice connection with the road. The spring rate and the shocks, I think, are really, really nicely damped, especially for driving like this, which frankly most people won't be. But there were some complaints from the CX-70 that it was a little too stiff. And to me, at least, it feels like they've backed off on that a little bit. I'm not driving them back to back, so it's sort of hard to say. But for a big, hefty SUV, this goes around the corners with a lot of confidence. And there's a lot of character to driving this too, because this engine sounds really, really nice. Let's talk about the steering for a moment. Apparently, again, there were some complaints that it was a little bit too heavy in the CX-90. And this to me feels a little bit lighter. Again, I haven't driven them back to back, but I like the feel in this car. I like the way the Miata steering feels too. It loads up pretty naturally, so it sort of gives me that sense that, hey, I know that we're beginning to put a little bit of G load on the car. And there's pretty good feedback from the front wheels too. You can sort of tell what this car is doing. And so motion control is really, really good in here. A lot of SUVs sort of get big and floaty and sloppy when you're driving in the corners, and this doesn't. This really has very good body control. It feels confidence inspiring. It feels, this is a nice car to drive. It doesn't feel like I'm laboring. It doesn't feel like this is a difficult job. This is something that is pleasant to drive on a road like this. They are aiming this vehicle at people who like to think that they want to do a little bit of hiking, a little bit of camping, a little bit of mountain bike riding, maybe a little bit of light off-roading. This is certainly not going to be your Moab, crawler through the canyons or anything like that. There's a lot of character to this vehicle. It's not cookie cutter, and what you're getting is a taste of something a little bit more upmarket. You're getting a taste of BMW. You're getting a taste maybe of Audi. You're getting a taste of a little bit more sophistication and refinement in sort of a sport luxury SUV at a more affordable price point. Thank you. Now the engine really has a nice sound to it. It is augmented. It has a little bit of augmented induction noise. Apparently there actually is a sound pipe, at least, yeah, there is a sound pipe from the engine into the interior, so it doesn't sound too artificial. I actually don't mind it at all, and it pulls really quite nicely. We've got a lot of torque, a lot of power, and let's just give it a little listen here. I drove the plug-in hybrid for a couple of hours, but I wasn't able to film my impressions on video with that particular car, so I'm just going to tell you my thoughts on it while I'm driving the Inline 6. The plug-in hybrid is interesting. Mazda is positioning this as a premium offering. The most expensive vehicle, I think, in the lineup is the plug-in hybrid. There's basically two variations, and they have more premium trim with them. This is going to be great for someone who values fuel economy, is driving this around town, needs to haul a bunch of stuff around, going to work, and so forth, and it's rated at 56 mpg. Power is a little bit less at 323, but the way it delivers it is, in my opinion, quite different from the way it's being delivered in this Inline 6. Now in the PHEV, you've got a larger electric motor, you've got a battery pack, which is 17.8 kilowatt hours, and then you've got the ICE motor, all made it through this 8-speed transmission to an all-wheel drive system. So it's a little bit complicated. There's a lot of pieces there. And when you're driving around the city at part throttle or light throttle, when you're taking off from a stop, you notice there is sort of different amounts of torque application. You can feel the electric motor starting. Then as the gas engine, which is naturally aspirated, gets up to its torque peak, you feel a little bit more motion, and then it shifts into the next gear right away. So you have these subtle little amounts of torque that are being applied to the car, but they're all different amounts of torque. So you have this very subtle accelerative effect that is not perfectly smooth. It's not a very big deal, I will mention that. It's not something that I think most people will notice. It's very subtle. It's just not as perfectly tuned as perhaps a Toyota hybrid system that has been doing it for a long time. So if you like a traditional 8-speed automatic transmission, I think you're gonna like it a little better. It's a more traditional kind of experience. And it is very well integrated overall, don't get me wrong. It's just a little subtle thing. I think an average person driving it is probably not going to notice it very much. With that, let's go talk with some technical people at Mazda and get a better understanding of this powertrain. So I'm here with Jake Stumpf, product specialist for Mazda, and we're going to talk about the powertrain. So we've got two different powertrains. We've got the Inline 6, which we're sitting in right now. Tell me, how does this work with the electric motor, and how does the whole thing function?
Sure. So this large platform, which is the bones underneath CX-70, was made to be electrified from the outset. So all the powertrains are electrified. It's really just a matter of how much battery and how much motor do you want. So you can think of the powertrain on either car as like a sandwich, right? There's the gasoline engine in front, there's then the electric motor, then there's the transmission, then the all-wheel drive system. So this Inline 6 turbo is a mild hybrid. It has a really small electric motor sandwiched in that little pancake there. That's really helpful for improving low speed efficiency and fuel economy and applying a little bit of torque fill. On the flip side, we have the plug-in hybrid, the PHEV. It's an inline 4-cylinder with a much larger electric motor and a much larger battery pack in the same location, tucked away kind of under the rear seat and rear structure of the car. So The stack is always the same, it's just a matter of what size the components are, which allows them to kind of share the same platform and make the cars kind of modular in that way and easier to assemble.
So these are, all the CX-70s are all-wheel drive, permanent, full-time all-wheel drive.
Correct.
So how does the center differential work in this?
On our crossovers, CX-30, CX-5, CX-50, CX-70, and CX-90, we have Mazda iActive all-wheel drive. And that is not marketing jargon, it's the real deal. Intelligent, active all-wheel drive. And our secret sauce is really our center coupling here in the middle of the car. And people think about torque split front to rear. Oh, is my torque split 80 in the front or 20 in the back or vice versa or whatever? That's not really how iActive all-wheel drive works. Our real magic is with the center diff, our center coupling. With iActive all-wheel drive, we think about what's called yaw damping. Yaw damping is managing how locked together the front and rear axles are so they experience wheel speed differential. Are they experiencing the exact same speed or are they experiencing differential speed? And so by being able to control the yaw damping, that's really our secret sauce. You'll notice it in things like our MI drive, our drive mode selector. On this car, we have the available towing mode. So say you do engage towing mode, you're towing something like we have this Cosmo in the trailer behind us. In towing mode, the car knows, okay, it's gonna use all the sensors available. Wheel speed, transmission, throttle response, the angle of the car. It's gonna see, okay, let's say you're going 5 miles per hour and you're applying a lot of steering. You're going to reduce that yaw damping in the all-wheel drive. You want to decouple the front and rear axles, and what that's going to do is kind of make the steering nice and free and light and allow the wheels to have differential speed and give the car nice, easy steering.
So you want to open up the differential at low speeds.
Correct, because the flip side of that is, say you're cruising at 70 miles per hour, you're locked in 8th gear, and the car can dictate, okay, it's squatting down to the back, there's a lot of weight on the tongue of the hitch, you must be towing something heavy. What we're going to do is we're going to crank up that yaw damping and effectively lock the front and rear axles together a bit tighter. And that's going to have the inverse effect. It's going to reduce the car's tendency to want to have excess steering. It's going to make the steering a bit more resistant to that initial change. And not only does that give you the confidence behind the wheel of, okay, the car feels really stable when you're cruising, but by increasing that yaw damping, it actually effectively locks the car down tighter and holds the trailer down more.
So it's going to have the effect of locking together the trailer and the car more as one unit than as separate units, which you want at low speed.
Cranking up that yaw damping, you can really lock down the whole trailer and car almost like a unit.
Thanks very much.
Cool. Thanks, Eric.
See you in the next one.
Yeah, see you in the next one.
I've already heard people complaining that this is really just a two-row version of the CX-90, and that is absolutely true. And one of the biggest problems I had with the CX-90 was the lack of little cubby spaces and little bits of storage inside. But I think with the two-row version, they've sort of solved that because you've got a lot more space overall. It's not designed to haul a whole bunch of people. This is really more aimed at people who want to do outdoor activities. Mazda has accomplished something that is pretty difficult, and that is going up market without breaking the bank. You've got really nice materials, really nice fit and finish in the interior, and you've got an inline 6 engine, and with the PHEV it's going to be pretty economical around town. So if you want a little bit of luxury, but you don't really want to pay the prices that the Germans have, I think these are pretty compelling offerings, and they drive really, really nicely too. So if you're an enthusiast and you don't want the big wallowy SUV, you want to do a little bit of towing, I think this is actually a pretty compelling package, and if I were in the market for a two-row SUV, this would definitely be on my short list. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.